Voters in the battleground state of Pennsylvania cast their ballots in the primaries on Tuesday. And while both President Biden and former President Trump unsurprisingly sailed to victory in their respective contests, the down-ballot races were a bit telling of what may come in November. Democratic Senator Bob Casey will be facing off against Trump-backed challenger David McCormick in what will be one of the most closely watched Senate races in the fall. Also in the Keystone State, Democratic Congresswoman and member of the Squad, Summer Lee, won her House primary despite her criticism of Israel's campaign in Gaza. That contest was seen as a test of sorts for what other progressive candidates will face in the primaries to come, especially without support from pro-Israel groups and with antagonistic support for their competitors from AIPAC. She faced a huge AIPAC challenge in her last race.
Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman has also raised some eyebrows for breaking with fellow Democrats and calling out far-left anti-Israel protesters. He's been a staunch supporter of Israel, and though he's not up for re-election this year, pro-Israel groups are filling up his campaign coffers. He's gaining with Republican donors as well, according to The Intercept. Simply the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, at least 14 registered Republican donors have contributed to his campaign.
Yeah, there's a lot of simpatico there. AIPAC has gotten a lot of flack from the left for donating to Trump-backed candidates for a long time. When they were going against Summer Lee in her last race, when they were going against Nina Turner and supporting her challenger back then, many people pointed out, hey, Democrats are trying to pretend like this is just a race between two black women and they're local to Cleveland and, what's the big deal? But what you had was one of those black women being enormously funded to the tune of, I think, a couple of $1 million of last-minute funding by AIPAC in an effort to defeat Nina Turner, principally because she offered some pretty, frankly, generic criticism of Israel and the occupation of Gaza long before, obviously, years before October 7th. So this is the question. This AIPAC has had to do a little bit of a rebrand because it is so closely associated with the right, but does give to so many Democratic candidates. And I think it's really exposing the extent to which there is a uniparty that is bought by these lobbying groups to enact interests that have nothing to do with the interests of the American public.
It's interesting what John Fetterman is up to. He's obviously dramatically improved his own favorability ratings. He is now very popular with many Republicans. I'll routinely see the sentiment expressed that John Fetterman is my favorite Democrat from Republican commentators and media figures. I wonder if he's actually going to switch parties, or is this frankly, what I suspect it is an effort to make sure Biden does in fact carry Pennsylvania in the fall. It's going to all come down to Pennsylvania, frankly, and some other places. And it's really close right now. I think he's trying to, to raise his favorability with Republicans in order to get that final, 0.0 whatever percentage.
But he's not going to be on the ballot. So what does John Fetterman, being a Republican, have to do to help?
I think they're hoping that people remember how much they like Fetterman? Moderate people, Republican-leaning who don't like Trump. Remember, well, Fetterman's okay, so maybe I can vote for Biden.
Summer Lee's? What do you read into Summer Lee's victory over her AIPAC-backed opponent?
I don't know anything about it.
All right, so I think that you're right about Fetterman. He is becoming a Republican. He's the Liz Cheney of the left. So I think that he's going to have a career much like Liz Cheney's.
Well, there'll be a place for him in the Republican Party, though, unlike Liz Cheney having a place.
She has a place in the Democratic Party.
Well,
she has a place in the Democratic Party. So that is exactly the same kind of person and character, I think.
I mean, she has a place on Democratic cable news, I would say.
Yeah, well, back to the presidential race. The Biden-Trump match is poised to be razor thin in Pennsylvania, reminiscent of the 2020 election, in which Biden squeaked out a win over Donald Trump by 1.17%. Fast forward to now, Biden is trailing Trump by 1 percentage point with 46 and 47% respectively. Nationally, Biden is continuing to close the gap with Trump, according to Decision Desk HQ. An aggregate of polls shows that the pair is less than 1 percentage point apart on the national stage. Trump has a 0.3% lead over Biden based on 672 polls, totaling 45% to 44.7%. Despite their easy wins Tuesday night, both candidates faced opposition. Biden saw a little bit of support siphoned off to Dean Phillips in the uncommitted votes, which have not been counted. Meanwhile, a chunk of voters voted for Nikki Haley instead of Trump, shedding light on the bumpy road ahead for Trump.
Yeah, I think it's about Fetterman. Let me just try to make that point more articulately. Having enough credibility with Republicans to, when push comes to shove, say, I don't like the left and I'm, sticking it to them all the time. But Trump's really not the guy, and it's, Biden is not perfect at all, but you trust me, and I'm saying we should give him 4 more years, and getting just even like 500 Republicans in Pennsylvania to hear that message and switch.
Yeah, if your integrity is worth 500 votes in Pennsylvania, then he can do it. He can be Liz Cheney. But I think the comparison stands. I've also seen some people just talking about him as a replacement for West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. Like a Joe Manchin replacement. You need another Democrat who is always constantly threatening to leave the Democratic Party and threaten the narrow majority. That was Lieberman back when Obama had a supermajority. Democrats always have to have the fiction of not having the power to actually do what they say they're going to do because their agenda is very much in line with what the people of the country want. So they have to come up with some procedural excuse for why they actually can't do the good things that they promised during election season. And with Joe Manchin on its way out, they need to replace it. It looks like John Fetterman is going to fill the role of being the bulwark between the American people actually getting any support from their government and for us having a corporatocracy.
I love to see it.
I bet you do. All right, stick around. We're rising after this.